Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We are diving into a really deep spiritual mystery today, and it's focused on one of the most famous events in all of history, the Exodus from Egypt.
Right.
And for you, the learner, our mission today seems simple, but the answer is, well, it's anything but. We want to know why the Egyptian exile lasted for precisely 210 years.
Not 200, not 250.
Exactly. Well, that specific number, 210.
It sounds so arbitrary, doesn't it? But when you actually dig into the sources, I mean, the profound teachings from Rabbi Shimshon of Ostrupol and, texts like the Me'or Einayim, you find it was this meticulous, divinely mandated countdown.
A countdown, I like that.
Yeah, the number 210, it's actually the answer to a very specific spiritual equation.
And here's what's so amazing about this. We're looking at a calculation that Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest prophet who ever lived, he actually got it wrong at first. When he was standing there in front of the burning bush, his math told him that the Jewish people still had decades of suffering left. He thought the exile would last 260 years.
Right, 50 more years.
And Jay's response to him, right then and there, was basically a mathematical correction that revealed the whole secret of the 210 years.
Yeah.
It's the arithmetic of redemption.
And to understand that math, that calculation, we have to set the context for the exile itself. It wasn't just a random punishment. It was a spiritual cleansing process.
Love tikkun.
A tikkun, a rectification. This huge repair job was needed to fix the profound spiritual damage that was caused centuries earlier.
By the family's greatest sin.
The selling of Joseph into slavery.
So that moment, that one moment when the brothers broke their unity, that created the crack that allowed the entire national soul to descend into Egypt.
Huh.
But how does that specific event connect to a specific number of years?
It connects directly, and this is the fascinating part, through the letters of the Torah.
Okay.
The sources explain that when Joseph was sold, certain divine energies, which are symbolized by the Torah's letters, they literally fell into the spiritual impurity of Egypt. We call this the Kalipa.
The Kalipa. So think of it like a thick spiritual husk or a shell.
Exactly. It surrounds the sanctity and just stops it from shining. So those 210 years were the exact amount of time needed to peel back that husk and purify those fallen letters.
So it's a spill of spiritual energy, and the exile is the cleanup crew. Let's get into the numbers of that original sin, because this is where the precision really starts.
Okay, so the sin itself involved 10 participants. You had the 9 brothers who were actively involved in the sale.
Right.
But, and this is a key point in the source material, when a community falls, the divine presence itself, the Shechinah, it sort of joins them to complete a quorum of 10.
That's a staggering idea. The divine presence was, in a way, forced to participate in the vacuum created by the sin.
It's a heavy concept. So you have 10 distinct spiritual aspects compounding the sin.
So there's our base multiplier, 10. Now, how many letters needed this cleanup?
Well, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, which make up the entire Torah. But according to this tradition, only 21 of them were considered to have fallen into Egypt's Kalipa.
21.
The letters from Bet through Tav.
Okay, so Bet through Tav, that means the very first letter, the Aleph, was deliberately left out of this calculation. We have to come back to that Aleph. That's clearly the heart of the mystery here.
It is. But for now, let's just stick with the 21.
21 fallen letters.
Exactly. So we have 21 letters that need this massive repair job. And because the sin involved those 10 participants, each of those 21 letters was seen as having fallen in 10 different dimensions of influence.
So like 10 facets or aspects for each letter?
Sort of, yeah. Something like the 10 Sephirot, the 10 divine emanations. Each fallen letter was carrying a burden 10 times heavier than it would have otherwise.
I can see the math starting to crystallize now. You have 21 letters, and you multiply that by the 10 aspects of spiritual damage, and that gives you 210.
210.
The exact number of years of the Egyptian exile. It turns history into a math problem, where the answer is precisely the amount of repair work needed.
It's the spiritual why behind the historical timeline. It was a 210-unit job, and once those 210 years were up, the rectification was done. The job was complete.
But here's the thing. If the calculation was so precise, 21 times 10, why did Moshe, the greatest of all prophets, think the redemption was another 50 years away? Where was the flaw in his logic?
And that's where we get to Moshe's assumption at the burning bush. He was trying to calculate the ketz, the end of the exile. He knew it was all about rectifying the letters.
He had the right formula.
He had the right formula, but he made one tiny error in his data. He assumed the damage was total. He thought that all 22 letters, including the first one, the Aleph, had been corrupted and needed to be redeemed from the Kalipa.
And if he includes the Aleph, how does that change the math?
Okay, so for this, we need a quick dive into gematria, the Hebrew system, where letters are also numbers.
Right.
The Aleph isn't just worth one, it's intrinsically linked to the highest divine name, Havayah.
YHVH.
Right, and that name has a numerical value of 26.
So Moshe thought that one letter, the Aleph, carried a weight of 26 units of damage all on its own.
Precisely. So in his calculation, based on that principle of 10 aspects of impurity, he included the Aleph's value of 26. So instead of 200...
He got 26 times 10, 260.
260 years.
Wow. And that's why he thought they were 50 years short. The difference between 260 and 210 is 50. That whole half-century depended entirely on whether the Aleph needed fixing or not.
It must have been a moment of just, deep prophetic anxiety. He sees the suffering, he calculates the remaining work, and he sees 260 years in the future. The redemption wasn't here yet.
And it makes you wonder, why did Jade correct him so powerfully and so immediately?
Well, that correction is the iconic moment, when Jada reveals his name to Moshe, saying, Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh.
I will be what I will be.
That name was the answer to Moshe's math problem.
The divine response was a numerical clarification.
It was. The whole mystery just hinges on this one idea, the purity of the Aleph. Ehyeh was essentially telling Moshe, your form maybe is correct, but your data is flawed.
So let's get to it. The narrative treasure of the Aleph. If all the other 21 letters fell into the darkness, why was the Aleph the exception?
This is such a moving idea. Yes, all the letters from Bet through Tav did descend into Egypt's Kelipa. They had to go down there to be purified, and that process took 210 years.
But not the Aleph.
But the letter Aleph, which represents the ultimate unity of GD, the Alufo Shel Olam, the master of the world, it never descended.
It was like a spiritual anchor left behind, above the floodwaters.
That's a perfect way to put it. The Aleph stayed in the spiritual realm, in heaven, for one specific purpose, to watch over the Jewish people during their darkest time.
So it was the constant, uncorrupted point of connection.
The one that ensured they would survive and ultimately be rescued. And since the Aleph never fell, it required zero rectification, 0 years of repair work in Egypt.
Which instantly invalidates the 260-year calculation. You take away those 50 years of work that Moshe assigned to the Aleph, and you land exactly at 210.
Bam.
Now let's go back to that divine name G used to correct him. Ehyeh. Asher Ehyeh.
Right, because we can connect the math right to the name itself. The first part of that name, Ehyeh, that's Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hayet, has a numerical value, a gematria, of 21.
Okay, that is just an incredible connection. The divine name GD uses to identify himself at the very moment of redemption, Ehyeh numerically equals 21.
The exact number of corrupted letters, the 21 from Bet through Tav, that needed the purification.
So it's like a divine signature confirming the 210-year timeline.
It is. I mean, if you connect this to the bigger picture, the entire redemption arrived at 210 years for one reason. Because the purest divine element, the Aleph, was never truly lost to the darkness. It guaranteed the exile had an expiration date.
And a much shorter one than Moshe had feared.
Much shorter. The Aleph was the constant promise that redemption was inevitable.
That really turns a historical date into this powerful, constant spiritual principle.
Yeah.
It means that, darkness is always partial. It's never total.
Right.
We've unpacked the ancient math, the secret of the Aleph. But how does this help the learner today? When they're grappling with their own challenges, we're all in some kind of personal exile at times.
Absolutely. And this story of the 210 years and the purity of the Aleph, it carries an incredibly powerful, practical message about an uncorrupted core that exists inside every single person.
I think everyone can relate to that feeling of internal kelipa, where stress or failure or just exhaustion feels like this spiritual husk is surrounding you.
Completely. When we face setbacks, emotional turmoil, spiritual crises,
Yeah.
it feels like all our letters, all our aspects have fallen into impurity. But the lesson here is that the Aleph doesn't just represent the master of the world out there. It represents the Alufo Shel Olam deep inside of us.
In every single soul.
That inner spark of gizliness. That's your personal Aleph.
Mm.
And the message for life is that even when you feel you're in the harshest personal exile, facing the deepest darkness, that internal point, that nucleus of pure divine essence, is never damaged. It stays completely pure. It's always shining.
So you might feel like the 21 other aspects of your life are struggling.
They might be, but the Aleph at your core, that divine point within you, is always whole.
It's the ultimate spiritual insurance policy. The repair work, the tikkun, it only happens around the core, cleaning up those 21 dimensions of self. But the core itself is always whole, always ready for redemption.
And just knowing that, having confidence in the purity of your own soul, that's what ultimately shortens any exile. It moves us from that frightening 260-year despair to a 210-year realization of hope.
It's knowing that no matter how far you feel you've fallen.
The connection is never broken. The Aleph never left.
So to just summarize this remarkable journey, the 210 years, the exact time needed to rectify the 21 letters damaged by the sale of Joseph. Moshe's error was assuming total damage, including the Aleph, which would have meant 260 years.
But the divine name Ehyeh, with its value of 21, confirmed it. The Aleph, the pure spark, never descended. Redemption was now.
Okay, so we have focused so intensely on the purity of the Aleph, why it stayed in heaven, watching over everyone. It's the symbol of ultimate unity, the beginning. So given that profound significance and the fact that the Aleph was the only letter pure enough not to descend, why then does the Torah itself, the book that details this whole redemption, begin not with the pure, powerful Aleph, but with the second letter, Bet?
Great question.
The question of structure built right out of our discussion, and one worth pondering as you reflect on the endurance of the soul. Thank you for diving deep with us today.